Uh,
Recording in progress. All right. Welcome to another edition of Where the Mind Wanders with Spoons and Joe. And in the fashion of our title, I guess it's going to be Where the Mind Wanders because there's really not too much on the mind, at least my mind this week. Just the holidays and experiencing that. Another Christmas has passed by, and they seem to come quicker every year the older I get. And we all were mentioning that this Christmas. It's like, geez, how's it Christmas already? It felt like we were just at Christmas. It felt like we were just doing this. And now it's another one. And we're about to hit the new year in a few days. And that also seems to come really quick. And I don't know, has it that been your experience as you get older, things just seem to speed up? Like,
yeah.
it's certainly been mine.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely been times in my life where it went a lot faster than other times. I feel like this year it still went really fast, but I feel like it slowed down in some sense just because, well, I mean, for me this year it was switching over to working for myself. And so that sort of took me off like the normal time schedule. So it, I don't know. I've seen some switches with some of that. It feels like it slowed some aspects down. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I think it has something to do with that. When you're younger, you're in school, or at least here in the States, uh, you have that summer break that seems to, that period of time always felt like it was an eternity for me, like summer break. Um, and now I feel like whatever they have for summer break is just like a little blink and it's
Mm,
gone. So, no.
mm. That that would be the only part I liked about school was the summer break. It
A
always
hundred
went too
percent.
fast. Yeah, the time speeds when you're having fun, so to say. And
Yeah.
I could have fun in my own room, just occupying
Mhm.
myself. And the next thing I knew, we were back in school, and time drug on in school for me anyway. So that's what I remember about summer break. But then you hit what I left school when I was 17 to start working full time, and then you don't get summer breaks anymore. And then
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Shoot, we used to have, it felt like endless summers. I lived out in the country. So, like, the area that I lived in where I grew up, it doesn't even really have a name. It's just kind of out in the county. And, we just get into all sorts of crap because we were latchkey kids. The parents weren't around. They were, working, and we just stayed at the house and did whatever. We had like a little list of chores and things like that we'd have to do. But then, you know, I remember one time there was a lot of occasions, and I don't know how we never got caught. I swear. I didn't even tell my parents probably till I was in my late 30s that we even did this, but we had a four wheeler and we would take it out and go all the places we weren't supposed to go because he had all day to whatever. And there was one time we ran out of gas like a mile away from the house, had to push a four wheeler through, all kinds of stuff and get it back in the house and then be like, just stored it in the garage. And my dad's like, a few days later, there's no gas in this four wheeler. Have y'all been out riding? I'm like, no. I don't know what happened to that. Like all kinds of stupid stuff we used to
uh,
do like that.
yeah, I remember
Oh,
doing stuff like that as well. There's when I lived in Florida, so like through middle school and high school, we were also latchkey kids, and I was the oldest, so I was in charge, which made it even worse. And I remember I put a skateboard through a wall one time because I was just like doing a stupid thing, as a teenager or whatever. You're just like balancing on the skateboard and just going, rolling it like little inch there, little inch there, little inch there, but just stabilizing. And I lost control of the momentum, and the skateboard went into the wall, put a hole in the wall. I was like, oh fuck! Tried to cover that up for it lasted a whole hour. I guess when my parents got home, like before they noticed, they're like, "What the fuck? Why is there a hole?" I don't know why I haven't thought about that. Oh my God, in years, and like it
Yeah.
makes me laugh now. But
Yeah. Man. There was so many crazy little stories like that. Like, I don't know. My parents, they wouldn't have suspected I would do stuff like that because I was pretty rule abiding for the most part. But that's, I suppose, the sneaky part of my personality type is like, if I see a certain window of opportunity, I'm probably, if I find a loophole, I'm going to take it.
yeah, what can I get away with?
Yeah. It's
Can I
like,
plot
not
plot and
really
plan this out
breaking the
perfectly?
rules. Mischievous for sure. Not like a
Mm,
bad thing, just testing the limits. Kids will
mm,
do that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, the concept of how fast time passes or how slow it gets, it's interesting because something you are enjoying, it feels like time speeds up so much.
yeah.
And something that's so painful, it seems like time almost stops sometimes.
Mm,
I don't know.
yeah. They say what time flies when you're having fun. That's one way it
Yeah.
flies. And the best way I can see it is because we're not conceptualizing time. We don't have time to conceptualize time. We're not in those instances where we're having a pleasant emotion. We're not conceptualizing time because we're just enjoying the moment. And so the mind has no intention to start taking little snapshots that we call time. Um, and it's the same when you don't want time to go fast, which I prescribe. That's my best estimation at this moment. Why, as we get older, time seems to go faster because we don't want it to slip away. So therefore, it does by the Heisenberg principle, so to speak. Um, what if you become aware of something and you don't have to conceptualize that you want it or don't want it. The field knows. There's a knowingness, and therefore you lose time. But when you do want it to pass because you're experiencing uh, discomfort, then it won't, and it crawls. And
Yeah.
I've noticed that the lower the field of energy is, look at the scale of consciousness to see what I mean. But like the lower it goes, the slower it goes, and
Yeah.
that's why those states can feel like an eternity when you want it to go, but it won't because you're in that lower energy. Yeah, therefore, you're wanting it to go more, and therefore it won't. And yeah, that's I think we talked about already when I used to dabble with the psychedelics is that they always put me into a lower astral, into like a hellish realm, and that was the biggest thing is time. It didn't stop, but it was almost like a grain of sand at a time, where it really, in those states, it really was a lifetime. That physically you could say it was like 4 or 5 hours, but it was a lifetime. And
Yeah.
for whatever reason, because I'm a glutton for punishment, I did it 6 times. Like, and every time it was the same. And eventually, I was like, you know what? Learn my lesson here. I'm not doing that anymore. Um, but yeah, because you wanted it to pass, and it just wouldn't, um, because everything was like non-linear, and you couldn't really distract yourself. Um, usually we use time to distract ourselves from emotions, to kind of push them down, to suppress them. We start conceptualizing time and then focusing in on that flip book we created inside of our own consciousness, so to speak. And I was telling you before the show, because you asked me how is it going being off from work, and I was like realizing even before my vacation started that I'm really attached to time and conceptualizing time and having always this constant pressure of time. And then I realized trying to let it go over the last days is that um, as all the sages and masters always said, time is doesn't exist. It's something we created. It's an illusion. And then you could say, well, what about the seasons and the clock on the wall and all that? And it's like even the whole idea of making a calendar and a clock on the wall and all that. It's they're still based on concepts and they're not perfect. That's why we have leap years and etc. And why it never lines, even though the whole idea of a 360 or 12 are using those kind of numbers that are considered occult in nature, um, they still don't nail it down. There's still always a decimal. Like it's never perfect. It's
Mhm.
just close enough to creation, but creation is not based on any mathematics we can grab a hold of. Um, so those are all concepts that were fine tuned by the intellect um, of the intellectual energy field, but um, inside consciousness, if you pay attention, if you're aware, when I say time is an illusion, time is an illusion. We're taking like snapshots and we're turning into things, into objects inside consciousness, and we're using those objects um, to experience time, um, whether it be future based or past based. You and I are wired to be a little more future based. You know, we could cling to the past as well, but we're not as past clingy. We're more future oriented, always worrying about trying to get ahead of the present moment, um, and trying to arrest it, and then building concepts superimposed onto the actual sequencing that is happening through cycles as everything is unfolding. Um, and so there's always the stress that goes along with that, which even like astrology, planet the planet Saturn is represents a lot of things, but it represents time, father time. It represents death. It represents anxiety. It represents structure. And all these things, if you really think upon it, contemplate upon it, are one and the same. That archetype, it's just this general archetype. Um, and Yeah, and the mind, our egos are based on time. They even say like a lot of the sages or I believe it's the Buddha would talk about you have to let go of time because it's a concept and it's one of the main structures of your ego, of your separateness, which that's another thing Saturn represents is separateness. um,
Mhm.
and I can see that. I can see the very structure of my ego is clinging to time and that we're always trying to get a split second ahead of what's really going on. So we're never actually seeing the world for what it is in the present moment. That's why they said to be enlightened, one of the biggest things, obstacles, is you gotta completely let go of time because the ego is through anxiety is always trying to take control of the next moment, and it's not. Most of the time, what's going on is literally just we're making these snapshots. Like think of like a lag. Think in the digital world with computers when there's like a lag but what we're usually having is we're superimposing these images that we're snapshotting right now, right now, right now, right now, right now. 1/10 second of the moment as it's unfolding. And we're not looking at reality. We're looking at the snapshots that we're taking 1/10 seconds. So we're not getting reality. We're getting our perception of reality because we're superimposing like right this like a snapshot. Everything I'm hearing and seeing and doing is, the mind is in its state of anxiety of wanting to exist separate. Wanting sovereignty is like snapshotting 1/10,000th of a second ahead of the actual moment. So we're not actually seeing the moment. And you can get kind of a glimpse of it if you're in a very positive emotion, especially in intense love. And I can say when I've went into these states of meditation, or when I went into that state like 8 or 9 years ago, there was like a light, like a brilliance, like I've never seen the world actually the way it was before. Because we're always putting these snapshots, superimposing them onto the moment, so we're not actually seeing it. And I got a glimpse to see what was going on without the snapshot. And there is a brilliant light. There's a reason they call it enlightenment or illuminated. There's a light like that we're not seeing because we're superimposing perception, these concepts, these things on top of the actual space of what's going on. And um, yeah, and that state also is you see that there's like this unconditional love that's always going on. Like and right now what we usually do when we project into the future, especially forget about just those 10,000ths of a second snapshots we're putting upon everything constantly. But when we project into the future, we're projecting that, okay, if this goes the way I want it to go, I'll get happiness, I'll feel love, happiness, joy. But technically, if you just got rid of all the concepts, like Wang Po would say, if you could just get rid of all the concepts, the Buddha mind would shine forth in all its glory instantly. It would fill in the space. What reality really is, what things really are. That we have all these superimpositions, time being one of the biggest ones on top of it. And that's why we're not seeing things for what they really are. We're seeing only our perception of it. And at best, if you're intellectually integrous and you're in at least in a conscious level of the intellect, like you can take those symbols and arrange them into a logical sequence and test them through the scientific method or whatever, or put them against like teachings of sages, which is still intellectual. It's still based on concepts, but technically, the concepts are superimposed upon the reality. Um, yeah, and time is one of the biggest ones, and it's one of the hardest ones to like let go. And I realized even though I was getting by contemplating and trying to let go of time constantly the last days, I've got a lot of insights into it because I just started becoming aware of what was going on with the whole time thing, with the pressure and the conceptualizations, and I could see the mind putting those that superimposition upon reality, like um, and I realized that in and of ourselves, we don't have the adequate power to let go of such a force of nature, right? Or I don't know how to put that, but we I today I started contemplating and trying to play in the mind how does one become the prayer, because that was the teacher uh, David R. Hawkins would always say the quickest way to enlightenment or to rise the scale of consciousness is forget about praying, become the prayer. Picture your visible self as the prayer and hold it, and as a single pointedness of mind in a state of contemplation, and in a state of surrender and supplication to divinity, so to speak. And I've always been trying over the years to play with that in my mind, especially over the last months. But today I found kind of, I guess, something that lined up with my intention. And with that became, there was a constant shining forth of joy, so to speak. And with that joy, it became a lot easier to dissolve the time track that the mind is always doing. And it goes back to full circle, when you're experiencing joy and love and happiness, you forget about time. And it without experiencing that higher energy, it's almost impossible. It's such a it's got us, like time has really got us. Um, or the ego, because the whole ego is based on it. Like the whole sense of separateness is based on it. Time and structure are one and the same thing. Like form, all content, all form is based in time. Uh, they call it the linear for a reason, I guess. So, but anyway, I need a drink of water, so I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah. No, I think that's yeah, we kind of talked in private about our concept of time and how it's different. So I wonder, like, as you're talking about all of this, is that something that maybe more specific to the INTJ?
Mm,
Because you're like a driven and motivated, and you have a real understanding of the concept of time and how long things take. Whereas someone more like me, I get a little lost in that. I don't know. It just makes me think about your psychedelic experiences with that and getting trapped in time. Maybe that was about trying to bring you to that concept, because
mm,
that seems to be what those experiences are about, throwing you to your personal hell, so to
mm.
speak. And so I could see for an INTJ to get stuck in time, that would be probably the most excruciating thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This the way the whole imbalance that would make you an INTJ or an INFJ for that matter.
Uh
Um,
huh.
is an extreme balance for internal intuition, which is basically taking the snapshot way forward and
Mm-hmm.
then filling in the blanks. And I'm not good at doing things at first. Like if I'm filling, it comes with experience. Uh, like for instance, when I started doing the music, I would say
Mm-hmm.
I want this goal, but I was still working out how to do it. You know, I had theory, but theory and practice are never the same. And
Right.
it comes from experience of how you can get it done better. And it's like the thing with how my mind works is because I just throw everything into intuition. Um, is I'm pretty retarded when I start something. Like we'll take an example, like at work or something, I get thrown into a new section. I got to learn this job, and immediately I want to do the best job possible, and I immediately project outward because I think CS Joseph or Chase would say that it's like the intuition is internal intuition is like a sniper rifle. Um, um, and the INTJ and INFJ in particular are known to try to even throw things 10, 20 years down the road and then fill in the blanks like in the middle. Um,
Right.
which is you start with theory, which is at this point I'm so done with theory. Theory's always fucking wrong. Like I don't trust theory anymore as the older I get. Um, but for instance, I'll have like this theory because I observed like a colleague's doing this particular job. I just got thrown into it. I set the end goal of how I want it done in the end of the shift, and then I'm like, I could do this better and more efficient, so I'm going to move it to the left. They usually do
Mm-hmm.
3 hours. I'll do it in two. And then but then it's all like I have all these theories based on observing, like sensory information of just observing, or theoretical information of the thinking, the external thinking, and it's like um, now I got to fill in the blanks, and it's going to be trial and error, like
Mm-hmm.
the first days, weeks, maybe in a month. But once I have the experience and all the trial and errors, and I failed a million times, um, or this didn't work. This is not that efficient. This worked in theory, but it's not that efficient. And I keep filling in the blanks and correcting the course. Eventually, it gets to the point where it's like automatic, and I come up with the system, so to speak, to do it extremely efficiently, extremely fast. And it's like
Yeah.
something I can't at this point, if in all humility, I can't take credit for because it's all happening automatic. It's just the way I'm wired, and it's just happening. Um, I'm not really doing anything. Like it's just like an automatic thing, like breathing. Um,
Yeah.
and it's yeah. And where was I going with that? Where from what I understand, like somebody has the other access, extroverted intuition and introverted sensing. It's not um so much about doing. It does have a lot to do with experience because you still got to like do fill in the blanks. But
Yeah.
once you have like the experience, like the snapshots, the memories, is like your intuition works so quickly, and like where you observe things in external world through the intuitive faculty, and then you use memories of things you've experienced in the past, and you're just like instant psychic. Um, and they say the INTP and the INFP are very good psychics because they're more imbalanced with those two functions because they're the middle function, so to speak. So there's not like this huge imbalance. Um,
Hmm.
like I was telling you earlier, I've heard many times that the INFP, after they have some experience with it, are usually the best people on the stock market because they get predict trends and like immediately. Um,
Yeah.
the thing is, extroverted sensing is more about action. Like I actually have to take action doing the goal and fail a lot of times.
Yeah.
That's how I know, it's like kind of with the time pressure, putting pressure on myself to sit down and do like music now. I did it so many
Hmm.
times that now I filled in the blanks and I know exactly how much time. If I pick up that guitar and write a melody, I know how much time is going to take to get to the end now. And it's just like off-putting. It's like I don't have that kind of time right now.
Oh.
Um, but at first, when I was
Uh,
getting into it, I didn't know. I was like trial and error, adjusting the dot, and then filling in the blanks, blah blah blah. But there took
mhm.
action to figured all that out. But with the your access the other way around, it's you do it all mentally. Like you don't.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
not as much trial and error through action because it's
yeah.
not extroverted sensing; it's internal sensing. So like memory, um,
Yeah.
so you can play
It's
out the
one
whole
of
scenario.
Chase's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of Chase's biggest gripes about my type is that we don't take the action. We
Mhm.
sit and we think about things for such a long time. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to think about both of our types being kind of future focused. And that makes actually a ton of sense because, like, just thinking about most anything, it's always like a thousand scenarios, a thousand paths to whatever sort of future thing that I'm trying to get myself to. Um, and it's strange. I guess it sounds kind of strange to say you kind of role play scenarios in your head for even like the most simple things. Like, there's a lot of social anxiety sort of stuff, not so much these days, but especially when I was younger. Like just going to like a restaurant and ordering food is like I have to think all of the possibilities ahead of time to make myself feel like I've played out every possible question, scenario, um, issue that could come up. And it's just ordering food. It should just be you walk in, you look at the menu, you order food. It's such a simple thing, but I've got to be like, well, I want to know already before I go and have the experience what I'm going to pick, what are the options. I don't know. What questions might they have? I want to do it perfectly the first going in. I don't want to look like someone that's lost or um, I don't know. I don't want to draw any attention. So I don't know. It's so funny to think about. Even like the simplest thing, I was always like that. And if you're like that for every kind of decision you're having to make and you have to do it in this perfection sort of whatever, it's kind of crazy. And it puts I think for me, there's a lot of times where you get in this, what do I call it? Decision paralysis, basically, because you can see 1,000 paths, and it's too hard to pick which one to go forward. You can see all the different futures and how that one little difference between this and that is going to change something. You're trying to pick the perfect path, and the thing is, there's no perfect path.
Mm.
There's no perfect future. And even though I've thought of 1,000 scenarios that can happen, something can still sneak in that I didn't calculate for and throw me off. And yeah, it's crazy.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like I get stuck in my head as well as, but it's more like mm, the whole process you're describing is only something I experience if I'm extremely angry or guilt-ridden. I noticed it's coming out of the shadow, because the ENTP whole shadow deal. But normally I don't experience like that. But there's like this used to be like an anxiety to take action as well, because I know I have all these theories, but I've never put them into practice. And then I know it's going to take time to uh, for that trial and error, and it could be embarrassing and on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of getting better with that as I get older, I see. But there's like not wanting to take action, mm, because I don't want to go through all the trial and error and failures like that are going to get me. So I just don't bother. Or
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I've done all the trial and errors, and now I know how to fill in the blank with that sniper rifle perfectly. And I'm like, I don't have the time. Like, so I do experience the same thing you're talking about, just for different reasons and intentions, I think. Like, or
Yeah.
if I'm spirally, but like I only play out scenarios in my head if I'm spiraling. Like, other than that, I don't play them out. Like, it's just more of like I don't want to go through the trial and error right now, or
Mm-hmm.
have went through the trial and error, and I know this is going to take a lot of time, and then I just don't do it. So I'm also very guilty of not doing things because of those reasons. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah. Then I realized I used to beat myself up, like for instance with the music thing. But I don't really honestly. I sat down and honestly like evaluated that, and I realized I don't really have the passion for it right now. I love music, I
Mm-hmm.
always will, and I have the instruments and have all the software now. And sometimes I do have the urge, and I am still guilty of being like, I'm not going to pick it up right now because I know where that's going to lead. I'm going to be 3 days staring at the screen. I don't have time to do that right now, and um. But there's also like not a drive to do it. There's not a passion there right now. I have a passion right now to I finally had that spark to work on myself spiritually, and um, use this lifetime to the best of my ability to get to the enlightened state. Who knows if I'll get there, when I'll get there. I'm kind of, as time is progressing, I am like just kind of giving that over, that I don't know when it will take place. And I am doing the work, and it unfolds when it needs to unfold. And at the right time, it
Yeah.
will appear. And if it takes another lifetime, so be it. Which that part still kind of scares me because I'm like, oh, well, I have everything lined up pretty good in this lifetime, despite all the challenges or bad things that might have happened. But everything seems to have lined up really well in this lifetime, where I think that is an achievable, I don't want to call it a goal, but a possibility. And so
Yeah.
there is like this little anxiety that, will I have that opportunity in the next life as well as I have here? Because we live in a pretty good
Mm-hmm.
time. Even though
Yeah.
everybody likes to talk shit about, oh, how think bad things are pretty good compared to that they've been in history. And
Mm-hmm.
people don't like to admit that because they want to juice being a victim. But it is a lot better unless you make up your own history, that there was some golden age or whatever that was 100 years ago. I see people do that all the time, but it's like, no, if you there's plenty of evidence of what happened in history to a pretty good generalization anyway. And even talking to my grandparents or people that were alive in my lifetime, like things are a lot better today, and
Yeah.
your base needs are taken care of for the most part. You don't have to work that much to take care of your base needs at this point. Um, and you can use this lifetime for higher goals. If you don't, that was your choice.
Hmm.
But so I do see this lifetime as a gift, and I'm like, I don't want to piss this gift away. And not to say I wouldn't make music going back full circle, but if the passion strikes me to do so. But right now, I'm like, I look at it and I'm like, I don't really feel like it. Like, just that's
Yeah.
just how I feel. I don't feel like it. Like, and I was beating myself up because I thought I was like trying not to do it, but it turns out I'm not trying or not trying. It's just I don't feel passionate for that right now. I have a passion for something else, and I'm making progress, and I don't know how long I have before this body mind expires, and I want to utilize it.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Well,
that's
and
where
you
I am.
never know. Those things at some point could overlap, even.
Mm. Yeah, I took the same thing into account. Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. There's a there's definitely a lot of projects that I was kind of looking back, because I guess we're at the end of December. I don't know when this will come out, but looking back, I was like, wow, there's a lot of these projects that the last couple of years I really wanted to do, and I just really haven't focused on any of them. And part of me wanted to beat myself up about it, but I think it is just um, trying to move in a different way this last year. I don't know, the whole year sort of, in one sense, has escaped me. So while I have done some of the projects I suppose I wanted to do, um, I still keep kind of getting nagged about these other things I haven't started. But I think it's sort of like what we talked about in private about it's not the time for it. If it was the time for it, it would kind of flow out,
Mm.
sort of things. So
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
it does.
it does. That's you don't really have a choice of when you're going to be inspired to take action. Um, you get kind of hit with this wave of energy where all of a sudden you got a fire under your ass and you just do it and it just like flows,
Yeah.
and it's like I've noticed that you can't really take control of that. People like to do all these courses and try to teach you about willpower and white knuckling and all that. That doesn't work. Maybe you can be inspired to white knuckle for like one moment, and then you're gonna fail in a few days, and then you're gonna beat yourself up. Like things are unfolding the way they're supposed to unfold. You do have will and intention, but things start playing out when mm, everything is aligned, so to
Yeah.
speak. You know, metaphorically, when the stars are aligned, you just do it. Like there might be
Hmm.
even a literal sense, but mostly I'm using this metaphorically. Like you don't know, like the karmas that you set in motion, so to speak. You don't know, like the totality of everything that's happening or is going to happen. You have no control over that, no matter how much you think you can. Um,
Hmm.
some people are also wired to be like go-getters. People always compare themselves to other people. I've seen this many times in my life. If you look at any of the billionaires, for instance, who bust their ass, they sleep like 3 or 4 hours a night, and they pop
Hmm.
awake, and they're like sharks. They've been described as sharks. They just keep moving and moving and
Hmm.
moving. And I met people like this in my life. I worked pretty closely with our colonel when I was in the army, who is now last I heard, like a two-star general, which is very hard to get to that. But
Mhm.
but this guy, he lived and breathed his job. He slept in his office in his chair 2 or 3 hours, got up, ran 5 miles at like 3 or 4 in the morning, jumped
Mhm.
right into his work. He's literally like walking around and people following around with notepads doing his bidding everywhere. Literally nicest guy ever, but he was wired to be like that. I could never
Yeah.
become him. Like for whatever karmic propensity, he is what you would call a go-getter and
Mhm.
doesn't need to sleep. Can always keep moving. Um, and is totally focused on just his job, single pointedness of mind, like um and that is quote unquote karma, is dharma, whatever you want to call it. We're not all wired like
Mhm.
that. You can't take a class to become like that. Like
No.
it's you have it or you don't. You're born with an ability to draw or play music or whatever, or you're not. And then there's a whole spectrum in between where like a lot of people can do it, blah blah blah, but it would be kind of mediocre. But there's some people that are just born like the Mozarts. He's just born and could play piano when they're 6 years old or whatever the hell it was.
Mhm.
Um, and we have no choice in that. That seems to be karma, like that for whatever reason. Um, Even if you think of yourself, and this is another reason I see, and I could tell you from that state when the light comes through and you don't have any of those concepts of perception over it. You see everything's happening by itself, and even if you're in the state of separation, if you're honest, truly honest, you'll see that you just do things. You get up, you go to the refrigerator. There's no explanation why you did it. You come superimpose reasons afterward, but and then even your own birth, the things you are interested in, the things that you're good at, um, things you're not good at, um, your body, your looks, on and on and on. You had no choice in any of that. Like it just happened. Like, and
Mhm.
there's no explanation really why it happened the way it did. Or like the last episode, I talked about like there things unfolded in my life I never asked for. It just unfolded. I don't know how they unfolded, why they unfolded. I do see their karma somewhat with more clarity. And that is the only explanation I could come up with, is that things play out. You can set your attention, and that kind of sets your compass, so to speak. But things still have to pass. Like you still have to deal with the ocean just because you set your compass. There's more to it than that.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing you really have free will over, is as things unfold, you intend. You always have choices, but
Yeah.
you have no choice in the choices. Those things just happen. They're just unfolding. They're just playing out.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I don't know. I guess one of the things that I've tried to do the last couple of years is try to take a lot of that future thinking and role playing, especially with like people in my life, and not do that so much and just actually have the interactions. And one, it reduced a lot of my anxiety about having interactions with people. Um, and two, it put this kind of unrealistic like aspect of control, I guess, with people and trying to maintain a world a certain way. And it's a lot more freeing just to let people be who they are. It's not necessarily easier, but I don't know. We It's definitely taken a lot of the stress off of me. Like even the holiday that we just had, um, there were some aspects of that that I was really sort of dreading because I don't know, it's just always uncomfortable to me, even though it's family and it's there's nothing wrong in our relationships at this moment. Everything's going well, but there's always like this underlying anxiety that something's going to go terrible. And I don't know why that is necessarily, but it was a fine holiday. But I find myself these days, I guess I'm just so, it's almost like I can't even just be present and enjoy some of that stuff. I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with that. It's just having one of those moments of like, ugh. Anyway.
Hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, my brain just kind of spun out for a second.
Yours and I's both. Yeah. That's what the show usually does is we get to a point and then we're like, hmm. And then
Yeah, if it doesn't
then
happen, yeah, while we're doing the show, it usually happens within a day or so after. I'll be thinking about something and then I have like this spin out. And I have to kind of sit and make sure I'm grounding and not getting lost in some of the things. It's fascinating though, just having like these weekly conversations and getting like a different perspective or a different question or I don't know. It can be like the smallest little thing and the amount of stuff that I have processed the last month or so that we've been doing this is kind of insane.
yeah.
I know on the last recording we did, I watched it back and I was like, man, I look so rough. I was so tired that day that we recorded.
Yeah.
Um, and I suppose that's just part of that process when you're kind of unraveling stuff. There is a lot of sleep loss and physical stuff that happens. Um, that's really kind of fascinating. Like, so one of the things that I've kind of been beating myself up over is writing projects because the last 2 years I've been saying I'm going to do all these writing projects and I haven't really, other than a little bit of poetry and a little bit of short story sort of things and blog type stuff, I haven't really written a lot that I've put out. Um, but I'm having all these physical changes in my body, and I kind of feel like that is going to take more of a priority just naturally because I'm getting more um, mobility back, which is kind of strange, I suppose. But like I've had a lot of, because of the different injuries I've had over the last 15 years, I've had a lot of mobility, not like I can't do anything, but just certain limitations or whatever.
Mm.
And I don't know if I have like scar tissues or adhesions or exactly what the connectivity of some of that stuff is because the body, when you tear things apart, your body will try to stitch you back together as
Yeah.
best it can
Yeah.
on its own. And
Mm.
I would say 2 weeks ago, I started having these sort of tearing sensations in different areas of my body
Mm.
that I couldn't really explain other than I think they were some sort of adhesions or scar tissues that have sort of
Mm,
started to separate because they're no longer necessary at this point,
yeah.
which gives me more mobility, which I don't know. It kind of makes me wonder if this is like um, a time to maybe consider going back to doing some of those things I did prior to getting injured, like weight training and different
Mm.
things like that, that I really loved and enjoyed. But also, I'm like, I don't know, I'm a little bit
I'm
hesitant.
I can actually give you a good antidote for that because I everything you just described, I have the issue with the shoulder. I
Hmm.
heard it weightlifting many years ago because I lifted really heavy weights above my head
Yeah.
against all advice and hurt my shoulder. And ever since then, it's never set quite properly. There's always like this impingement going on. It periodically gets better, it gets worse, it gets better, it gets worse. However, you would think that you should rest it more when it's hurting, but I the last like today I actually did a workout and I don't, overdo it, but the very act of moving it and um doing what I can, it feels a lot better than it did when I woke up or yesterday.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that because that's also another thing about intention is sometimes the intention you got to set is not mm, for your own ego, so to speak. For instance, I keep in decent shape when I used to weight train, and it would be or for either fighting because I used to do mixed martial arts, or so I could kick, be more powerful than my opponent, or it'd be vanity of I want big muscles, blah 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 blah. But that's a very low um, amount of energy to draw from. You have to be in that kind of consciousness for that. There was a time in my life where that would have motivated me. But now I keep in good shape because I know I will feel better. And for I've noticed that even when I had the quote unquote arthritis, the rheumatoid arthritis, that the more I actually exercised, and it doesn't even have to be as intense as I used to. I don't, it's not nearly as intense as I used to. If I get 2 workouts a week now, and I'm in better shape
Mhm.
than I've ever been, outside as I probably can't run as fast as when I was younger, but physically and weight wise and health wise and energy wise, I'm in better shape than I have ever been in now 36 going on 37. And the motivation now is for the attention is for health and mobility and
Mhm.
energy. So it's coming out of a higher energy because if I was trying to do it for more vain reasons, so to speak, I wouldn't be able to accomplish it. And I was telling you before the show that I've been one of the teachers I work from is about contemplation rather than meditation because meditation you got to take yourself out of the world. So and if you could contemplate continuously in a yin style, you can accomplish more because it's always going. But I've always had a hard time holding the contemplation. I'll lapse throughout the day. And his main contemplation was saying to evoke God, to evoke divinity, become the prayer. Don't pray like in another time, space. I go here, I pray, but become the prayer. And I played with that for months, but I never could find um, what I was aligned with, I guess, and to more so today, where I realized what is my intention. Forget about what I think I should be praying for, or I think I should be becoming as a prayer. Like, what is my overall intention? Is
Mhm.
the self-realization, enlightenment, so to speak. Um, So I was playing around with the mind and I found one that was easy to hold and easy to let go of thoughts and this time pressure and all that stuff was to verbalize it because it's non-verbal. It's a posture. It's a mudra. Um, it was holding to verbalize it. Um, I open myself to revelation of the presence of the self or the presence of Christ or however you want to phrase it, the source of existence. And you don't have to verbalize it completely because there's a lot to unpack just in that one thought, that one holding in the back of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And from that position, it was very easy to let go of thoughts today and very easy to let go of the time pressure, which was I've been struggling with for the last days. But all of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
because I could feel joy as you're holding this internal mudra, as he
Mm-hmm.
calls it, um, things just started unfolding, and I started to realize more from the witness perspective. Um, so things that from that intention, things all of a sudden, like melting butter. It's easy to cut through the butter when it's starting to melt, so to speak. Or just thinking about that, how I could stay in better shape these days with just setting the right intention is
Mm-hmm.
I don't think of your intention of in life of what you value, and set your intention for whatever on that and let things unfold the way they should by setting your attention on obviously the things that mm, you feel in your heart
Mm-hmm.
and letting everything else play out with your compass set there. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, um, so yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no, no. I'm just taking pleasure in the small things this this last couple of weeks. Just like it sounds silly, I suppose, but the stairs to go up to my apartment, I can actually kind of run up the stairs at the end of the day, and I'm just like, I don't know, just that little bit of extra mobility that I've somehow loosened up
Mm,
and being able to move a little bit easier. I'm like, I can see how it's going to just sort of, in some senses, just naturally occur. Things are just going to naturally become easier. And whatever path that I'm supposed to take, if it's going back to like weight training and stuff like that again, I just know I ease into it.
mm,
This is the problem with my type. Ease into it. Don't cannonball. I love to cannonball into shit. it's, it's the I don't know. It's some of the craziest stuff because a lot of times when you cannonball into things, people think you didn't like contemplate them first because it looks like you just jumped to everybody else. But for me, it's like I've already thought about this. I've been waiting for this window of opportunity to just present itself at the right time. And then before I can chicken out, I gotta just go all in on whatever it is. Um, and that's not necessarily a bad way to be, but when you're injured and you're trying to like retrain your body, it's probably
mm,
not the best way to be.
mm,
So I'm trying to um, be more selective, I suppose, in what parts of my life I choose to cannonball.
mm.
what what parts of life I'm like, okay, just take this a little piece at a time and it will be fine. So I mean, truly, that's probably what caused my back injury in the first place, was going too far with something before I was ready for it. So,
Mhm.
because I actually, I don't know if I can't remember if we've talked about this or not, but I actually, the whole spinal disc space tear that I had, it
Mhm.
was from weightlifting.
Yeah.
Um, it was trying a different technique, and I wasn't really sure about it, and it was actually a different trainer than I was used to working with, and they were kind of pressuring me, and I just kind of crumpled and said, "Yeah, okay, what could it hurt to try this different technique?"
Mhm.
And
What
boy,
exercise were you doing?
huh?
Which
So
exercise
it's
were you
like
doing?
so it was a bench press,
Okay.
but what she wanted me to do was, when I'm on the bench, to bring my shoulders towards my hips so your back's not flat on the bench.
Okay.
And I don't know what the purpose of that actually was. And yeah, that's how I ripped my spine.
Yeah.
That's how I ripped my spine. Because genetic history, or whatever you want to look
Mm,
at, my from my mother's side, a lot of us have this where
mm,
the spine is not, it's not like a scoliosis spine, but they'll call it sway back. There's like a little bit extra curve toward the
mm,
bottom of the spine, but it's not like something that needs to be corrected. So there's already a weak spot.
mm.
And then you add weight and a bad posture to
Mm.
that.
Yeah. Basically, she was telling you to lift the weight in a bad posture.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes no sense. Were she trying to get you to lift more weight by doing that? Because I do see like guys that are trying to lift too much do that kind of movement, but
I think it was weight that I was normally lifting, but
yeah,
putting yourself in such a odd stance,
yeah,
it just yeah. And then, once you've ripped something like that,
yeah.
there wasn't anything they could do, which actually was lucky for me that the doctors decided there was nothing they could do for me, because
Mm,
otherwise I'd have screws and plates and all kinds of bullshit in my back. And I don't know that that ever actually helps people. I think it just, I mean, obviously, if you break something, that's a different thing, but sometimes you don't have a choice. But
yeah, no, like I said, the only thing I've from experience, because I've all kinds of body problems at this point, is just know that by doing something, even if it's just like 10 minutes of yoga or something, it's better than
mm-hmm.
not doing something. Um,
Yeah.
even if you're injured, don't go overboard, but do something like it because that it by resting too much, it makes it worse in my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
And I mean, I've been doing a little bit of yoga over the last several years, especially, and not really. I've made some improvements in my mobility, but just this last couple of weeks, the amount of improvement, it's just crazy. I don't even know how to like calculate it, other than to say I can now run up the steps, whereas before it's just like
Mm,
there was like a slower movement. I mean, it's not that big of a whatever. I mean, if you look at 4 or 5 years ago, I had an ankle injury where my ankle was pretty much in a semi-locked position. Um, I had hurt my foot. They put it in one of those walking boots for a while. Nobody could figure out what was wrong with my foot. It just hurt.
mm,
I don't know if it was gout or if I had like a hairline fracture that just never showed up on any of the x-rays, or who the heck knows what it was, but they put me in a boot, and it locked up my ankle. And that was like that for years. And the only reason that it sort of kind of got to a point where I was able to use it better was I decided to start hiking again. It's
Yeah.
like I'll just go freaking slow, and any opportunity that I saw to try to challenge it a little bit, and I hike with poles. So,
Mm,
to try to help from falling or further injuring that ankle.
mm.
Um, but yeah, doing that is what freed it up.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
almost,
definitely agree with what you're saying about doing a little bit.
yeah,
That's,
it's almost like it's like testing you to like, all right, is this going to be you? Is this going to be crystallized, or by kind of doing something and using it regardless of what you're experiencing, it's almost like you're saying this is not going to be my limit. I'm
yeah,
limitless, and I'm going to set my own limit or no limit. And
yeah,
it's also things evolve. It's like you don't have to lift weights like you did when you were younger. Like I don't lift the way I used to. Like I used to
yeah.
lift really heavy weights, and um, I found um, through this whole trial and error thing where I could get to only working out twice a week. Maybe I'll do like 10,
Mhm.
20 minutes of yoga in between on days in between, but it's really just a day or two out of the week. And if you do less weights or body weight exercises in isometric or plyometric instead of just lifting, um,
Mhm.
you can use less weight and have better gain for energy, for muscle, for everything.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, my focus, I mean, obviously it would be nice to have a little bit of muscle gain or whatever, but
mm,
it's just more about being mobile.
yeah, yep,
I look at people that are, of a certain age, and I think I don't want to look like that trying to get around.
yeah.
And
That
this
that's
is the
also
time where I
yeah.
can improve it.
That's also part of the whole thing in my intention too is I look at people
Mhm.
or their bodies are falling apart and I'm like, I'm not gonna go down like that. I'm going down swinging. I'm not going down like that. Like
Yeah.
because I've seen many people that are older than me or in their older age and they don't do shit. Like and they're a total mess. And everybody I've known that is somewhat active, whether it's some sort of training or sport or just hiking or whatever, doesn't have those problems. So
Yeah.
that's part of my motivation and intention as well is that I want to take care of the body. If I take care of the body, it'll take care of me better. And
Yeah.
you do feel better. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
hard to start, but
Yeah.
once you do it, you're always happy after you did it. You're like, I'm
Yes.
glad I did that. I'm glad I spent that 20
Mm.
minutes, that hour or whatever. Like I never once ever regretted it. But it's always hard to start. I must admit. Like you always want to like, do I have to do this? Blah, blah. But once you do it, you feel great, and your body thanks you for it. And any injuries or pains that you had actually get better.
Yeah.
You do something stupid and overdo it, but but generally you feel better, and your body thanks you, and you just feel better.
Yeah. Yeah, this year I haven't really been doing the hiking like I had been. I'd been very consistent while I had the job working for the insurance company because some days I would go after work and hike because it would have been a stressful day or whatever. But pretty much whatever weekend time I had, I was going at least one day, if not both, and hiking the trails and stuff. So it was way more consistent. And then I don't know, this year I just working for myself, I even though I have all the time to schedule it, I don't know, something shifted there. And part of it was so I've always just gone hiking alone these last couple of years. Not necessarily because I wanted to go hiking alone, but it just 2020 I was in this mindset of, well, nobody's going to do it with me, so I'm just going to fucking do it. I'm tired of waiting on other people, and that's just an excuse anyway to not do it.
Mm.
So I'm just going to go on my own. But this year, it's been a little bit different, and I've not been able to actually pinpoint exactly what it is about it because I'm not afraid to go on my own. There's nothing exactly like that, but there's almost like this I don't want to go
Mm.
on my own sort of mentality that's crept in. So really the only hikes I did this year was well with Cody and Sharon out in Sedona when I went back in March, which has been forever ago. It's
Mm.
probably I think I went once or twice this year
Mm.
since then. And I don't know.
I have a friend that I thought he was an INTP, but it is he took Chase's test and he said INFP, and I was kind of coming to the same conclusion.
Uh-huh.
Um, and one thing he told me that I don't really resonate with it because I just do my workouts alone. And I've always been like, even when I did sport, it's more like, martial art or something like that, like a loner kind of sport. But
Mm-hmm.
he was telling me, and I kind of get it, that he feels like when he does things with people or around people, it's more motivating. So if he gets a gym membership and he goes to the gym, uh, or not even going with people necessarily, but just being around people, he feels more
Mm-hmm.
motivated to actually do it. So maybe you're just more people oriented when it comes to physical stuff, and you just have to be around people. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I guess that's something else we talked about this week about I was explaining to you a couple of years ago, I created a group on Telegram that was just about creativity.
mm,
And it was because two people I was friends with were writing books at the time. And I wanted to write a book. And I was like, how can I harness like these people and their creative energy and their motivation and these sort of things and kind of bottle it in
mm,
a sense or interact with it or draw from it. And so I ended up creating that group. And it's kind of hard to explain that. Um, but yeah, I do. There are times where I kind of draw off of other people's energy, so to speak, like either their creative or motivated energy, because I don't really, I have creative energy pretty much on tap whenever, but motivation is not one that I can or focus.
mm,
So it was more about surrounding myself that with people that were motivated and focused on a specific thing to kind of keep me narrow, which it didn't work for that purpose. It became something else entirely, which was probably better.
mm.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you,
Yeah.
like when you used to be really into what, well, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
No,
but when
no,
you
go
used to
ahead.
be, I'm just kind of picking your brain, like when you used to weight train all the time, was it always with people? Because you mentioned a trainer, like I
Yes.
literally have never had a trainer, like
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Because I didn't,
so,
so, so being an INFP, obviously sports is not really my strong suit. I'm not really athletically gifted in any sort of sense. And in my 30s, I just really wanted to start doing some different kind of workouts. And there was this place not far from where I was staying that you could have a personal trainer and weight train.
mm,
And so I got to learn all of those skills basically. And I had somebody there he was so good. Um, And it engaged this other part of my brain. It's like I get to tie all this nursing, all this muscle knowledge and stuff, and look at it through a different lens and just get to do all of these different things. So there was a lot of things I enjoyed about that. But yeah, having a appointment, I think I went like 3 days a week, sometimes more. um, but having an appointment and a person that I had to kind of show up for,
Mm.
making that commitment was what kind of helped keep me on that path for a couple of years. And
Maybe that's,
then,
yeah, maybe that's just your secret to get things done is you just need people. You're a people person. You're an affiliate of like,
yeah,
so,
yeah, yeah. And there's all sorts of different ways to do that. I don't know. I'll figure it out at some point. I've thought about even at different points hosting some sort of hiking groups.
no, that's an idea.
Like, yeah, because especially some of these parks that I'm super familiar with, I could definitely take people around, maybe even do like yoga or something at some point along it. There's all sorts of different thoughts like that I've had, but putting it together, I'm not great necessarily at that stuff until
Mm.
things just sort of come together.
Yeah.
I don't know. That goes into this whole other aspect of things that I like to do, but I don't really know how to market it. Sort of like our Sedona trip thing that I like to talk about. Whereas I get to pick a space for people and get their list of demands and figure out how to meet all of these different things that people want from an experience. So basically, I want to build experiences for people. Um, I mean, let's not get too lost. It was for me too, but
Oh, yeah.
it's just fun to kind of bring things together. And the more people, well, not necessarily the more, you have to have the right amount of people involved to make it something special. So I don't know. I love putting together trips. So I always did stuff like that. Back in the day, I used to put together like weekends where we go as a group of friends and see a concert and have like a whole thing planned out. Used to do all kinds of stuff like that. It was so fun. So, I don't know. But yeah, I definitely require people.
Mm.
I can get up and do things on my own, but it's easier for me to be motivated if there's something else involved.
Yeah. I don't see anything wrong with that. It's
No, there's nothing wrong with it.
kind of the exact opposite of me, but I do recognize that some people do need that. And I
Yeah.
think knowing that about yourself is, you know, to help you go with the flow more than go against the wind, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's sort of just the more you get to understand yourself in different ways, and the more you can just be like, well, not in a victimy way, that's how it is, but more of a, well, that makes the most sense sort of thing. Sort of like what we were talking about. Um, you're motivated and time oriented and a finisher. So like you can look at something. You may not start all of the projects or whatever that you want to do because you don't have enough time, but you are not going to waste your time on something you know you can't finish. And
mm,
I'm not really so much of a finisher. That doesn't mean I don't complete things ever, but I think maybe my nature in this world is more of creative and sparking things and helping people pivot maybe at
yeah,
certain points.
the background type. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
So I don't necessarily have to be a finisher.
mm.
And
Yeah,
for a lot of yeah, a lot of years I've beat myself up about that because
yeah.
I look at
I
the field of field of things over to the side that it's like, well, maybe someday I'll get back to it. And it's never going to happen, but uh, it's
yeah.
just how life flow is for whatever reason. So, yeah,
Mm, yeah. I don't finish everything, by the way, but that's like mm, one of the most miserable feelings that I could
yeah,
possibly have is starting something and not finishing it because I didn't
mm,
realize that the information I pieced together was theoretical and it didn't work out. That's the
yeah.
ultimate way to get me to spiral or and really hate my life. But it's actually I don't think it's been a while. I can't really give a good example of the last time that happened, but I guess that's another part. Um, yeah, where I won't start things is because I had such a bad experience not finishing it before that I don't want to try again.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, it's funny. Yeah, that's another thing I contemplated over this days. It's just how funny life is and our egos are, and regardless of how it's structured, wired, personality wise, just to me, it's like bizarre. I just kind of look at it as the witness. I'm like, how the hell did this? How did we evolve into this? like,
I don't know,
like,
man.
I'm grateful
Uh,
in the sense, but at the same time, I look at it, it's just bizarre.
yeah. Like life is just wonderfully weird,
Mm,
really. It's more interesting probably a lot of times than we want to give it credit for.
mm, mm, indeed. I think we've been going for a while. I don't even know how long we've been going, but
I don't
um,
know, man.
I think this is our longest episode yet. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I guess this is a
Yeah,
good
I think
place to wrap it up.
uh,
You got anything else or?
no, I was just thinking, man, we've really wandered around this
Mm.
episode. So yeah, I think this is good.
All right. And yeah, yeah, well, I guess yeah, we'll just wrap it up there. And thank you guys for another episode joining Spoons and I for Where the Mind Wanders. And as she just pointed out, we really wandered today. So I hope you got your fill and to next time.